Was Thomas Jefferson a hypocrite? Part 3. I never expected there would be a part 3. I just expected there would be a part 1. But one question leads to the other, and I think it's extremely important that we cover all of those, questions, everything that was elliptic, ellipsis, everything that was elliptic, because that way you won't think, you won't have, let's say, a criticism against what I told you and just ignore the whole thing. So my effort here in this video is try to find the loose ends, and tie them and see if we can get a nice theory here. Okay, so maybe after watching those 2 videos you are thinking, oh, so you're telling me that I can't have any opinion about anybody. That's exactly what I told you. If your opinion is judging people, and again, I'm not thinking about, oh, you should be pure and you should never judge anybody. That's not the point, If you want to gossip, I like to gossip. It's pretty good to gossip about people, You feel better about yourself. That's not the point. The point is much more something related to knowledge, The problem is not talking trash about people. I mean, if it's the problem, it's another kind of problem. The problem is not having enough knowledge and self-awareness as to realize that we don't have enough information to judge a character, okay? So based on that idea, refining what we have talked about in those 2 other videos, I want to talk to you. I think I wrote some points I should talk to you now. So we can't judge people, we just judge their actions, right? I think that's the first point. It's already well covered. And then we have something very interesting. Then we have the privilege of literature, Look, I don't know about the complexities of Thomas Jefferson. And I can't tell you that, as I told you in the other video, right, if he had a heavy conscience, or if he is a hypocrite, or if he was, I don't know, he was oppressed by, I don't know, the environment of his time, and etc., etc. I cannot tell you that. Again, this is something too personal. But I can do something very close to that with a character, For example, let's imagine I read Don Quixote, right? And I can judge Don Quixote. I think if he was noble or not so noble, this is let's say a secondary question, but I have access to parts of his mind that most of the time is hidden to us, or are hidden to us if we compare to real people in real life. Okay, so again, a very well written character will give you a very nice sample of a person with the internal desires, with the inconsistencies and things like that. Okay, so that's a very interesting point. Okay, but then you may be asking, but can't I form an opinion about Georgie, about Thomas Jefferson? Look, of course you can. But what I'm talking about or against here in these videos is this idea of, getting to know one of his actions and judging the character. First of all, the action is more important. Second, let's imagine I want to get to know Thomas Jefferson. Sure, so I should read, I don't know, many biographies, all right? Why am I telling you that? Because maybe you are going to a wrong direction, thinking, as I said in one of these other two videos, that history is closed to us, right? So I'm just going to develop, remember this is a technique we always use when we're working with a complex point. So I show you in a way and then I show you all over again from another perspective, right? So the point is, many people would say that history is close to us. Right? Why? Well, because I've never met Thomas Jefferson, right? Because I didn't live in the United States at that time, and even if I lived, I wouldn't have been able to enter everybody's minds. Therefore, reality is close to me, and whatever I think about history is a construction, an intellectual construction, and etc. and etc. That's a very dangerous way, my friend. Very dangerous path, right? Because then you get to the absurd point where you can say that it doesn't matter, we will never have access to history. Now look, I'm not telling you that we do have complete access to what happened in the past, right? I'm not telling you that we do have complete access to what, other people in our society think and do, right? What I'm telling you is that we have access. We don't have complete access. So let's imagine this cell phone here is, the life of Thomas Jefferson. Somebody, this is the first historian, wrote about Thomas Jefferson, so here, this guy here, I hope I have enough hands, wrote about Thomas Jefferson, and this is what he wrote, okay? So you are reading a paper or a book that was based on this guy's perception of Thomas Jefferson reality. And then you can think, see, we can never get to know what happened. But look, guys, this just proves what? That descriptions are incomplete and biased. It doesn't prove that we don't have access to the historical fact. It just proves that it is more difficult than we think to have a, let's say, sound opinion about a historical fact, So, could I judge Thomas Jefferson? I could say more things about him, but first I will have to read this guy, who had one possible vision about Thomas Jefferson, and then I would read another guy, and another guy, and another guy, and another guy, and another guy, alright? And the historical accounts, and etc. And by going around the personality of Thomas Jefferson, I could say more things about Thomas Jefferson. I will never say everything I have there is to say about a historical fact, but I can pursue that historical fact and get closer and closer and closer to reality, okay? Because the fact that I'm telling you that this historian here has a biased vision already proves that there was a real fact after all. Because if there weren't any real fact, there wouldn't be a biased vision, there would be just a vision, just a fiction, just, a story about anything, right? But there is a difference between history and fiction, okay? So that's extremely important to us, because very frequently people say, we are talking about history, but this history was written by this guy who was biased. I think that's a very nice perception. But if from that you give up trying to know what happened in the past, then you are missing the point, okay? So yes, it was biased, so I'm going to read another guy who has a very different point of view. By the way, that's the importance of having a press, or journalists who have different political views, right? Because if this guy is a left wing and you know, he doesn't hide and, you know, says, no, I have a neutral vision of society, right? If this guy is a left wing and this guy is a right wing, you have the chance to try to look at the phenomenon from two different perspectives, and hopefully you're going to look at the same phenomenon from other different perspectives, you know, moderates and things like that, and then hopefully you are going to form your own opinion on that. That's exactly the kind of thing we are going to do when it comes to history, okay? Oh yeah, that's an important point. So a very interesting point, a starting point, and again we have the beauty of literature, is to read history as if we are reading literature, okay? So I'm going to read a biography of Thomas Jefferson, and this guy who wrote the biography is extremely patriotic, all right? The fact that he's patriotic shouldn't stop you, of course, if the guy is good, shouldn't stop you from reading his paper just because, oh no, everything will be biased. Of course everything will be biased. Everything from anyone will be biased, right? Everybody has one perspective of life, but be careful again. I'll tell you that over and over again. The fact that I have a different perspective of reality doesn't mean that the reality is inside of my head. I have a different perspective of reality that does exist, okay? Well, so what is a very nice exercise when you're reading history? You should read, of course, if you are interested, you should read about that guy as if we're talking about fiction, as if you're reading fiction. So you believe everything the historian says and try to make this character, you know, in your head. If the guy is good, he'll be able to do that. Okay. But then comes the difference between history and fiction, right? With history, you will be able to read another guy and you are going to be sure that this other guy is writing about the same person in reality. So again, you read as if it is fiction, but probably that second book, let's say, will have a kind of conflict, sometimes in small details, sometimes a complete conflict against the first book. That's nice. So why? That's the historical thing, right? So you have something in the middle that you don't have complete access. I'm not denying that. We can't have complete access to Thomas Jefferson. But the more I read, the more I study about Thomas Jefferson, the more conflict I'll have, you know, between those visions. And the more conflict I have, the closer I can get to reality. Okay, that's very, very important. But then probably you're telling me, look, I don't want to read many books about Thomas Jefferson. I don't want to, you know, study the same historical facts from different perspectives. That's fine. But then, my friend, you are not entitled to judge Thomas Jefferson. You are entitled to judge what you have seen so far, right? I have seen that the guy wrote the Declaration of Independence and that he didn't free his slaves. I can say that not freeing your slaves is a very bad thing, that slavery is a bad thing, and I look at the document of the Constitution and I take my conclusions from that, you know? More than that, it would require a person that has more knowledge than me, okay? So then we learn another very important lesson, that is, we are going to avoid speaking things to the air. We are going to... But then, of course, you may tell me, but then I won't tell my opinion on anything. Because I'm not a specialist in history. That's the point. I think that's the point. You're not a specialist, you're not a historian. But what you have access to is rich enough as to give you enough to talk about. Specifically about our course, right? Specifically about our course. So where's the book? Well, it's not that important. I just wanted to have the book in my hand. But the thing is, you know, I'm going to read this book, okay? And Then I have a passage, and this passage is about freedom. It's very interesting. That's nice you don't have any other knowledge about this guy. So talk about this specific thing here. Talk about one sentence. Guys, if you have watched my videos in many regarding many books, you'll see that it's possible to talk like 2 hours, 3 hours about one sentence. So remember my tip. It's always better to dig than to roam, than to wander. Okay? What do I mean by that? I have this text here. I am on this text. So dig it. Dig it. Instead of, going here and then going there and then trying to get, a conclusion about life in general, a philosophical conclusion about all history. You don't need that. You just need to pay attention to this specific passage. And this is what I'm calling you to do.